All right, so my PhD is about pathway to commercial success for Australian biopharmaceutical SMEs. I'm doing it under supervisor in Monash. So my focus is really biopharmaceuticals. So biopharmaceuticals is not only the largest part of the biotech industry, it also has the highest growth potential. So it had a tremendous growth over the last couple of decades and still shows a lot of potential for growth. But it wasn't the case all the time. There was a significant issues which was discovered in the early 2000s that this industry had a commercial inefficiency. So they had a lot of great discovery technologies, but it wasn't commercializing fast enough. It took one discovery technology about 1.5 decades to come into the market. And when a lot of them came into the market, they became obsolete because other medicines and solutions actually made them obsolete. So all these IPs and discovery technologies kind of gone to waste. So what the industry did with the help of a lot of research and scholars is the industry found out that this is happening because a significant part of the discovery and commercialization activity was actually centered in the academic sector. The academic sector was not only responsible for the discovery bit, they were also responsible for the commercialization as well, and they were spread too thin, and there were one institution doing a lot of things, a lot of bureaucratical issues, which is why the process was very slow. So what the industry did is globally is that it decentralized. So it took away a lot of that commercialization responsibility from the academic sector to technology transfer sectors, who were essentially experts in industry commercialization. And as a result of that, the industry opened up, became more efficient, and became more successful, and achieved a lot of growth. So that's what happened worldwide. What about in Australia? Well, in Australia, what we saw is that Australia adopted the same strategy following the global trend. It opened up the industry, but what actually happened is it didn't achieve as much success as the rest of the world. And what is the reason? They have opened up the industry to all these technology transfer sectors, and it created essentially licensing and entrepreneurial spin-offs. A lot of SMEs was actually created in the market. But a lot of these SMEs had a lot of discovery technologies of biopharmaceuticals which they couldn't find enough success with to draw in big pharma investments. So the industry essentially did not achieve that kind of critical growth to become a commercial hub. My supervisor is here. Which is why this is the area which the scholars call the valley of death. Essentially, when the technologies goes to all these SMEs, they couldn't achieve that same level of success to draw out larger pharmacy industry, and a lot of this technologies kind of ends here, and the industry doesn't move forward. So the focus of my PhD is to try to understand what is the cause of this, what is actually causing these entrepreneurial firms not to achieve bigger pharma investments. So we are working on this into 2 phases, and currently our research is towards the end of phase 1. In phase 1, we are doing semi-structured interviews of commercialization specialists. So all these specialists works in these SMEs, and they range from technology specialists, agency consultants, venture capitalists, academic consultants, and also upper management as well. All there, so by interviewing them, what we are trying to achieve is we are trying to answer 2 research questions. The first one is about trying to understand what are kind of the operational commercialization issues which they face within their ventures, and then using a deeper understanding of those issues and challenges, we kind of wanted to understand what does their commercialization pathway look like for their technologies which they are trying to commercialize. And then with that understanding, we are planning to move on to phase 2, which is essentially some case studies of actual Australian biopharmaceutical SMEs, where we would essentially get an understanding of their pathway hands-on to understand, okay, where does the problem in that pathway actually lies in real life, in reality. And with that understanding, we would try to, and with our theoretical understanding and the insights from all these specialists, we would try to come up with a new kind of improved and more successful business model. So that's like our futuristic kind of objective. So really the kind of theoretical foundation that we are kind of set on, we are still working on the theory because it's like the middle of my thesis, is really about a mixture of stakeholder theory and industrialization. What I have found out that, and a lot of scholars have found out that industrialization occurs differently across different markets. So if we go back a bit, what worked globally is not working in Australia. So industrialization works differently in Australia because Australia is an isolated economy, and which makes the market unique. It's a small market as well, which is why there needs to be a deeper understanding. So this is the kind of theoretical foundation with the stakeholder model, which we are essentially trying to achieve, and we'll see where it goes from there. Now I want to discuss some of the insights which we have already achieved in this research. So first insight we found is the commercialization pathway significantly differs across different sciences of the industry. So there are essentially, from a commercialization perspective, three major clusters. One is a single cell molecules, biologics, and biosimilars. These are different kind of science spaces, but from a commercial perspective, they all result in a physical drug, which actually sells in a drugstore. So their supply chain is very similar and to the traditional medicine, which is like a double-edged sword, because the commercial pathway is very clear, it's very similar, but at the same time they share the market with traditional medicine as well. So they have more competition and more pressure for ROI. On the other hand, single cell and gene therapies are essentially therapy products. They address the unmet medical needs of the society, like cancer and multiple sclerosis, etc. And because they're tapping into untapped markets, they have more potential for ROI, which is an advantage. They have less competition, but at the same time, it's again a double-edged sword. Their commercial pathway has more challenges, as you will see later, and it's more unknown, so which is the bigger issue. Thirdly, we have a smaller but much newer industry, which is machines for biomedical procedures. So these machines are essentially helps with medical procedures, and they are built with biotech principles. This is a very new industry which has small markets, but in Australia particularly, it was quite successful. We have a couple of players, the Costlier and ResMed, they have done quite well, particularly in Australia. So let's look at how the commercialization challenges differs across the sector. My study has found essentially 6 commercialization challenges. The first 3 is about discovery and also ROI. So as I explained, the single cell molecules, biologics, and biosimilars, they're established industries, so their discovery challenges are low, but they find it difficult to find investor because they need to justify ROI, and when they're in the operation, they find it hard to kind of deliver ROI as well. On the other hand, single cell and gene therapies they have greater risk, regulatory, legal risk, and also discovery risk in the discovery phase. They have a different kind of challenge in finding in the funding strategies, because they need to understand the implications of private or public funding. Private investors are more open to communication but want more control. Public funds gives more control to the firm, but you cannot really communicate as well as because of all the regulations around share market. But if this space can go through all these challenges when they come into the market, it's very easy for them to deliver ROI. The next set of challenges really comes from the scale and the nature of operation. In single-cell molecules, because they're similar to traditional medicine, they have greater operation, larger operation. So from that scale comes a lot of issues, because Australia is a smaller market and they need to go overseas to all these CDMO agencies who are specialized in actually giving that support of operations. For cell and gene therapies, the challenges come from, not from scale, but from variety. They have smaller scale, but small, little, different kind of case, but they also face CDMO issues because, again, there isn't enough CDMOs in Australia, for which they have to go overseas, and they have some mismatch in skills and standardization. Ultimately, these are the challenges for these two main industries. For machines, the challenges are much smaller because they don't have test and trials. Their industry is very clear. Once you understand what you have to produce, the customer base is clear. But the industries are smaller, so ROI is small. So it's a low risk, low return industry for now, but there is a lot of opportunities for growth in the future. Now, if we put all these challenges and try to understand what the commercialization pathway looks like for these SMEs. So first comes the discovery phase, where you have to do early discovery work and find the right kind of SME structure. Do you do academic spin-off, or do you license and then become an entrepreneurial firm? Secondly comes early stage commercial translation, where you have to find investors, and I have explained what are the challenges of finding investors. You have to design and conduct that test to solidify product into a commercializable technology. Then comes late stage commercialization, where for some of the technologies, specifically in the cell and gene therapy, because they are going into unknown industries, they need to find additional funds because they realize they need more funds to do more research, like late stage research to build the technology further. At this stage, they also are doing human and animal trials, so which is another challenge. And finally, when it comes to commercial application, it's all about market success, ROI, long-term sustenance, and if they can do enough market success and get enough ROI, they ultimately bring in the big pharma investments, which is the ultimate goal. Now, as you can see, for cell and gene therapies, all of these three steps at the beginning is much more challenging than other industries. But once they get to the market, delivering ROI and actually long-term sustenance is much better for them. So this is how it really differs across the different subsectors, and it's really important for us to understand that. So in the next phase, we'll kind of get into case studies of different SMEs looking into different technologies like this and try to understand how it plays out in real life. So that's pretty much my research so far.
Questions? Comments?
Sure.
What's the risk? It's amazing. It's a huge study that you're doing. Given Australia's record, where as soon as you start getting to late commercialisation stage, we tend to get the international people coming and flying in like carrion crows.
Yeah.
Are you expecting to see, what sort of stories you can down like that, or are you expecting to see? Yeah.
So that's a really great question, and this is one of the challenges that a lot of scholars have already mentioned, that one of the simple challenges that Australia has is that it doesn't simply have enough funding. And public funding is, and because it doesn't have enough private funding, they go into public funding. But because of the public funding, the shareholders want earlier ROI, and you cannot explain to them why you can't give them earlier ROI because of all the limitation of the share market. So the industry is actually looking for more foreign investors. So it's actually good if more foreign private investors come in, more venture capitalists come into the market. So one of the attractiveness in Australia is the R&D incentive. So if you invest in Australia's test and trials, you get 40% of it back. So that's a very attractive proposition that the Australian government has created to facilitate this kind of investment. So that's a policy-related improvement that the market really needs to do, which my study alludes to. But the focus of my study at this stage is really managerial. So if you are an SMEs within the limitations of the market, what is the best you can do? Any other questions? Or do you have any other comments?
Just from a monash perspective, is having Moderna on site going to make a difference, do you think?
Which one?
That we've got Moderna on site now.
Yeah.
Is that going to make a difference, do you think?
Yeah,
Like these clusters?
vaccine actually created a lot of opportunities in Australia because it saw a very good push from the government. So the government, before COVID, there wasn't a lot of push from the government in terms of giving more investment into the industry, but there is now. So COVID has actually kind of helped this industry a little bit.
So typically, how long is this process?
So once it was, like I said, 1.5 decades, but now, depending on the technology, it can be like within a few years. And even then, by interviewing some of the people, I have learned that we have found ways to actually diversify the use of the technology. So for example, I have a cell and gene therapy technology, which is meant to help the cancer patients. But in the middle of the development, we realized that it also has implications in the cosmetic industry, the cosmetic surgery industry. So this is where kind of the patent lawyer comes into play. The patent needs to be created with a lot of smartness so that it has flexibility. It's not made inflexible so that we cannot use it. So that's another kind of nuances we're kind of exploring as we are going into the study.
Thank you.
Nice.
Any other questions? If not, thank you very much.
No worries.
Thank you so much.